know it's crazy, but it's
You're watching Channel Z, the world's leading zombie apocalypse channel. Broadcasting live from Studio Z.
Makes me act the way I do.
Welcome to Undead Live, reporting from the front lines of the zombie apocalypse. We have your back morning, noon, or night, whether you're dead, undead, recently deceased, or fully alive. We have the apocalypse covered. I'm Athena Activist.
And I'm Dave Lundberg Kenrick, newly recruited cult member of the Cult of Chaos. So.
You're back in the Cult of Chaos now?
Neil came up to me and he asked if I wanted to join. He said they're up to 4 people now. So it sounds like he's really taking things in exciting new directions. So,
well, I'll look forward to hearing some updates about this evolving situation.
The one thing I'm a little concerned about is I noticed on Twitter, they referred to him as my predecessor. So I feel like they're erasing me from the history books. And, I don't know. Are they going to say that he started this cult? We'll see.
Well, if you're in it, I guess maybe we'll have some say. It depends how he's going to lead the Cult of Chaos. So, yeah. Well, I think we should jump right into our exciting show because we have so many amazing guests today.
Talking about music, right?
Talking about music, talking about bluegrass, talking about the sort of roots of our interest in music as well and how it connects to fundamental motives that we as humans have.
Yes. So this will be great. Should we just go right into bringing on our first guest?
I think we should. It's my pleasure to introduce Julie Sullivan Brace. Julie is the co-founder of the Pickin' in the Pines Music Festival. Julie, thank you so much for being here with us.
Thank you for having me. It's a delight.
So, Julie, you have really started something amazing in Flagstaff. You and apparently a group of amazing people.
Yes.
The Pickin' in the Pines Bluegrass and Acoustic Music Festival. How long has that been going on?
It's hard to know. We went into a time warp. So we think it should have been 17 years, but it was really 16. So we had our 16th year and we had a year off in there. That was a little scary, but we came back and so it's been going for that many years. And it took us about a year to launch it with a group of like-minded people cooperating and saying, let's make this happen.
So how did you guys decide to start this?
A deep love of the music and having gone to a whole bunch of bluegrass festivals and wishing we had one in our own hometown of Flagstaff, Arizona. And we were approached by Parks and Recreation manager at the time who also liked bluegrass and said, hey, we're going to have a big amphitheater, a beautiful facility built. So the facility became real and it had all the components because for bluegrass festivals, you have to camp and hang out at night and revel in playing live music with your pals around a campfire to ward the spirits away on the edges, although they're welcome. They just have to behave themselves.
Like the zombies. So. When and where is the festival?
It's at it's now called the Pepsi Amphitheater, which is kind of a stupid name. But and it's at Fort Tuthill County Park in Flagstaff. It's surrounded by ponderosa trees. It's just a beautiful facility. So it has this gorgeous amphitheater with a huge professional stage and all the things you need to put on a festival and the component of a campground.
Yeah, let's talk about that for a minute.
Okay.
Because I have to say that
You
for
love
me,
it. She loves it.
Oh my gosh.
That's what hooked her in.
Pickin' in the Pines. I got my tie-dye, my Pickin' in the Pines tie-dye. So the music, the professional music on the stage is one thing. That's amazing. It's wonderful. You're there and you're seeing these virtuosos performing.
Oh, amazing.
But then this totally different kind of magic happens on the campground where people have set up these camps. And I mean, you have probably a few dozen, camps with campfires where people are gathering and they're playing bluegrass and people wander in and wander out and people meet people they have never met before and they play music with them.
Right. And I was talking to Tomasz about this. It's a language, you could go anywhere in the world and places I've traveled in the world, I'll look up and, you know, and go, oh, is there a bluegrass jam in Genoa in Italy? Is there one in Budapest? You know, wherever you go, and you can find these bluegrass jams, and people are singing bluegrass in English, and you could just plug in and play music with people you've never met, and you have like this instant connection and community. And I think that's kind of rare. I think that is unique to bluegrass.
Yeah, well, we were talking about this sort of importance of these secret languages, right? In making connections in a sort of new global friendship economy, sort of.
Yes, exactly. People, that's what you have in common with them at that moment in this. And I think of it as like kind of a love language, you know, because you just go into the zone when you're playing music, and you can have kind of a liftoff quality with that when you're with the right people that you love, and you love how they play, and they love how you play, and you know all the same songs. You go, oh, you know that song, you know, Dark as a Dungeon, or, you know, whatever the song, you know, they go, oh, yeah, I know that one. And
you might have never played before with them ever. And you're playing a song and you're like, oh, all of a sudden I feel like I'm part of a super organism, right? It's amazing. So,
yes.
Yeah, it's a very special experience.
It is.
So how did you first get zombified into playing bluegrass music?
That's a very good question, because I grew up in an industrial town in Western New York. I'd never heard of bluegrass. I'm like, what is this weird redneck thing? I grew up with jazz music. My mother was a jazz singer, and I went off to Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, and I kind of got introduced to the folk music scene there. I started listening to Norman Blake and John Prine. We had a Jason, and you played that fabulous John Prine song a little earlier. And then that led into me listening to bluegrass. I started playing more guitar, started learning bluegrass, and just, and then I just loved it so much. I definitely got
zombified.
I got zombified by it for sure. It was an obsession. It became an obsession.
I have a question. I know you have a lot of stuff you want to tell us about it, but how is bluegrass different from folk music for people who are?
You know, that's like how are arts and crafts different from each other kind of a question. I think they overlap. And Neil had a great thing when we were talking the other day about what's a genre. What is a genre? And bluegrass really is its own genre, although there's this overlap with folk. There's a lot of stuff played some of the same instrumentation, but, you know, it's ensemble playing. There are rules. I think in genres, there's sort of rules that define how you do it, what you play, type of music. So in that respect, I think it's more structured than folk music, but it is a subset of folk music. You know, it's derivative of old Scottish, old Irish, and also of blues, and something I've discovered that's really interesting that most people in the bluegrass world, I think, kind of know, but you know, Bill Monroe, the father of bluegrass, he was really influenced by this African-American man, Arnold Schultz, which brought blues, the quality of blues, into bluegrass. And that's part of that.
Should we hear some?
Why, certainly. Would you like to? Well, actually, what I would really love to start with "Oh Death" by Ralph Stanley, who is one of the earlier fathers of mountain music that is a part of bluegrass. And I just think this is, you guys will all know what this is about in that "Oh Brother, We're Out," though, made this popular.
Oh, death, oh, death, won't you spare me over till another year? Well, what is this that I can't see with ice cold hands taking hold of me? Well, I am deaf, no one can tell. I'll open the gate to heaven or hell. Whoa, death, won't you spare me over till another year? Won't you spare me over till another year?
Yay!
Wow. So
very
powerful.
Very powerful. And all these things that chronicle death, in the talk about murder, suicide, illness, so many people that died of fevers. There's the history of suffering that's brought into bluegrass music. Say depressing themes couched in zippy tunes.
Perfect for the apocalypse. So,
Exactly.
Yeah.
What makes that so appealing? Because I really like that. Like I like hearing a sort of pretty sad song.
Yeah.
Is it? What do you guys think?
Maybe it's just easier to digest. I don't know. You can bring it in and then you can think about it more. I mean, in that situation with Ralph Stanley's, just, if you remember from the film, he's in the Ku Klux Klan outfit singing "Oh Death," which is very powerful. We joke about that. There's these very serious themes. And it's like,
Right.
banjos and fiddles and
Mhm.
guitars and yeah.
Yeah. Well, can you take us through some more of the history
Sure.
of bluegrass?
Yeah, sure. I thought this is a really interesting quote by Bill Monroe, who defines how he defined bluegrass was kind of interesting. I know I have it here in my notes, which is Scottish bagpipes and old time fiddling. It's Methodist and holiness and Baptist. It's blues and jazz, and it has a high, lonesome sound. So I thought we could play an interesting Bill Monroe song, and this one is let's play Uncle Pen.
As a solemn old judge, George D. Hay used to say, here's Bill Monroe and the Bluegrass Boys, let her go, boys.
People would come from far away to dance all night till the break of day. When they called her hollering, do-si-do, you knew Uncle Pen was ready to go. Hey, and about sundown, how the hill is above the town. Play the fiddle on a hound to ring, you can hear it talk, you can hear it sing.
As a solemn old judge, George D. Hay used to say, here's Bill Monroe and the Bluegrass Boys,
repeating.
let her go, boys.
That is certainly a zippy song.
It is, and that's him. He's talking about his uncle. People celebrating their family members, and kind of simple. There's a simplicity to the chronicling of these love of family, loss and graves, and going to the graveyard. I mean, you don't really
So family
sing too many of those songs. In bluegrass, there's a ton of them.
Mhm.
Maybe in rap, I'm not sure.
Oh yeah, there are. There's
Yeah,
quite a
I'm
few.
sure
sort
there
of,
are. I'm
like,
sure
songs about
maybe more
remembering
so.
People and
Yeah.
So,
Talking about Bob and I were talking earlier too about how, it's the crier, the troubadour, the person's telling the story and bringing the story to life.
Mhm.
I mean, I know a lot of music does that. I think bluegrass is keen on that.
Well,
Yeah.
and it seems like bluegrass seems to be showing the story of people in working class environments, right? And so,
That for sure.
in some sense, this seems like it sort of plays into this giving of voice to people who are traditionally sometimes more voiceless than.
Well, yeah, and especially at the time, like miners, a lot of songs about mining accidents, farm accidents, the times where there was a lot of hardship.
Mhm.
Maybe we want to remember that
Yeah.
and sing about it and think about it. There's quite an interesting song. I think you should hear part of it, "The Little Girl and the Dreadful Snake," which is just like, who gets bit by snakes these days, But this is a great song. It's another Bill Monroe classic.
Our darling wandered far away while she was out at play. Lost in the woods, she couldn't hear a sound. She was our darling girl, the sweetest thing in all the world. We searched for her, but she couldn't be found.
not too, but that was a story and a story of
Was-
sadness, that
Is it possible it's a metaphor?
it really
not?
wasn't at the time. No,
Really?
it was a real
Interesting.
story. A little girl goes off into the woods and screaming for help, and she gets bit by the snake and dies.
Nice. Wow.
And
So-
we're singing the song about her.
Well, and it's a very sweet like waltz.
It is a
too.
sweet waltz, yes, and the
Yeah.
waltz pattern is really a delightful energy in a jam. You're playing a bunch of fast songs, and then let's slow it down. Let's play a waltz. It's just there's something maybe someone who has more science around music can speak to this, but there's something so heartfelt about a waltz.
Do they play waltzes at funerals, or funerals tend to be like funeral dirges? Are they waltzes?
Probably.
Kind of. I feel like.
I would think so. I want one at my funeral. Would you play one for me?
Sure.
Okay.
So-
Has everyone figured out their funeral playlist yet? That we need to all be working on that, I think.
Oh, that'd
that's
be a
true.
great
That'd be a
workshop.
Don't you
perfect-
think it would be fun?
Exactly.
Next Sam.
Yeah, next one. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, good.
Right, because it would have to sort of capture your life and the message you want your loved ones to carry on.
Yeah.
Right? That's like,
Yeah.
and turning your spirit into songs is
I think that would be a great workshop.
Lovely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Julie, where else do you want to take us?
Well, I would like to talk a little bit about sort of the evolution of bluegrass and how it's embraced other musical forms and how other musical forms have informed it. Like you start to move into newer bluegrass, and sort of ties into the Grateful Dead and how Jerry Garcia was such an influence on a particular audience, and brought this younger audience into bluegrass. That younger audience would be my age now, Jason. And how and that involves sort of this counterculture situation. Drugs might have been involved, and that definitely changed, I think, the course of the music. And at the same time, Jerry Garcia started out as a banjo player and loved bluegrass, and he was actually invited to play with Bill Monroe and the Bluegrass Boys. And I guess he did a couple gigs and then decided that wasn't for him, and then became the Grateful Dead, and the rest is history. But that has really, that influenced the form. I think that's helped to bring younger people in. And then the people like David Grisman, who's contemporary of Jerry, and they're buddies, and that brought the whole dog music in, and this more jazzy kind of influence. And he's a remarkable mandolin player.
What is dog music?
Oh,
mean?
dog music. Well, maybe we should hear a little.
Yeah.
So that is Dog Run. And there's a little video clip with this, which is great because I think David Grisman's face is just.
Wow, that's amazing.
Just love his face. Yeah, and that just he just blew the doors off of a lot of people with his mandolin style. And I think that also widened the audience again. And so that's helped, because there was some question about how is bluegrass staying alive? It continues to evolve, but it keeps this very strong connection to the root. I think that's fascinating. Maybe jazz is the same way.
Maybe that's part of why they survive, is because they're open to change and influence.
Yes, I think so. I think it has to be that way. Otherwise, what happens.
Nice.
Yeah. You can't have too much chaos, though, because I know what happens with that.
And by the way, I just would like to say that I think my friend Dawn Kish and I were the first members of Neil's cult.
Oh, well, that makes us, we're all whatever we're called.
Okay,
Chaotics,
we're Neil's cult.
Nielsen's. Yeah.
We're in it.
You guys are all nihilists.
So
Yeah, we're nihilists.
well, I do. I have.
Yeah.
What's that mean? 20 minutes.
I mean, we're 20 minutes in, so we
That's-
still
Yeah.
we got some time.
Okay.
So,
Well, talking about I'm just thinking about something else that would be. Well, we should play "Truckin'" by the Dead, don't you think?
Yeah.
Let's just hear a little bit of the Grateful Dead.
Trucking, got my chips cashed in, keep trucking, like the Doodah Man, together, more or less in line, just keep trucking on.
Right. So
Classic,
yeah.
not bluegrass, but the
What elements of bluegrass do you think are in that song?
none.
None.
Not-
Okay. Well, it's got the
Maybe
focus
the
on the
beat.
working
It
class.
could have a good
right?
beat. Yeah. Well, actually, it's about incarceration because he got arrested. There's this great mug shot of him, and that was what that song. They got arrested for drug possession and thrown in jail. So there's a lot of bluegrass. Yeah, that's right. There's a lot of bluegrass songs about being in jail, and busting out, and some of them are really beautiful. I'm not sure I actually have an example, but flying over the prison walls to your beloved waiting for you on the other side. There's these sweet, just homey kind of, well, I guess being in prison is.
Sing Me Back Home, Merle Haggard.
There you go.
Yeah.
Yeah. Beautiful.
Man on Death Row
Yeah.
wants to hear singing as he dies. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
It's just beautiful, and how music can soothe your soul and help us cope with very stressful situations.
Absolutely.
Like being in prison.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it sounds like bluegrass has not just gotten influences from all of these other musical styles, but has influenced other musical styles that might not be bluegrass anymore. It's almost like a speciation event or something.
Yeah, and I've thought about that a lot. We had a situation year 5 with Pickin' in the Pines where we kind of imploded. And I've just been thinking about this idea of cooperation and collectives, and you bring a bunch of diverse people together dreaming something up. They have different ideas about what that should be, and through time that changes. And I don't know if there's a real term for it. I call it vision schism. And we definitely had that we got to a place where we were going to grow, we were going to embrace change and bringing in more contemporary progressive music, or we were not. And would we die? We didn't know. We made the decision to add night shows, and those night shows have a big kind of rock status. They're kind of like, in-ear monitors. We had to have all this bigger production. It really moved us into this other world, even though we still have, I feel great. We have straight traditional bluegrass. We have this mix. We have old time music, which is a little bit different. That's a whole nother topic. But so we brought that in, and that caused quite a few of our collective to leave us. And that was a sad point in time. And I feel now, like, as hard as that was, I don't think our festival would have survived if we hadn't made that leap to innovate, to not be afraid to innovate. We pissed people off. A lot of audience, I'm not going to those
newfangled
newfangled rock and roll. So we're not doing that. So that was tough, but we've survived, however many, year 5. So, 11 more years. And actually it was like almost 2 years in the planning. So it's been a while, and those shows are wildly popular, and they keep a unique and diverse audience coming. And what I like about it is that it pulls in this an audience that might not like bluegrass at all, and then all of a sudden they go, where did that music come from? I want to know more about it. Well, I'm going to go to that workshop, because workshops are a really big part of what we do, educational component. And yeah, and so then people go to a fiddle workshop. I saw you sitting at a fiddle workshop. I think you were there. And or to, just a discussion on the history of where this music came from, or learning to jam 101, because there is an etiquette and a process and a container to that genre. And so that brings people in.
Yeah.
Actually, that's nice to know, because as somebody who has started to learn about music later in life, it's scary sort of trying to figure out how to enter what can feel like a community with its own secret languages and rituals and things like this.
A lot of what Julie does is create those spaces for people to learn, for people to become a part of these communities. So like the summer workshop that you hold.
I'm hoping to, bring everyone into the fold.
Zombify.
Julie wants brains.
I want them to get hooked. And I want young brains too. I really I love when I love when younger people are like jazzed about coming in and learning to play bluegrass. But I like when anyone comes in. But yeah, I have a summer music camp called, I do my little plug, Roots and Boots Music Camp for adults. And that just was because I wanted more people, wanted some way, because people don't really, it is a secret language.
Yeah.
I mean, there are rules. There are, it is a genre, and but there's room too.
Well, and later this afternoon we'll be having some music workshops and some jamming, and so you can have the chance to learn right here later today about some of the basics.
Right. So, and is this like all levels, or do I need a certain amount of musical?
You can just come and hang out and listen and see how it goes.
Yeah.
And,
I'll go. That sounds
bring your
fantastic.
harmonica.
Please
All
come.
right,
Please come.
So Julie, how did we get to where we are today now with bluegrass? Maybe you can just take us through the present real quick.
Well, how did we get there today? Well, I think, again, more people have come in. There's a lot more women involved in bluegrass now, which that was also a lot more limited. I just think that it's become this, it feels accessible to people, even though there is a secret language. And the deeper you get in, you start to know more about it, and you go, oh, I want to learn more. Like anything, you learn this much, and then you go, oh, I want to learn that much. You want to just keep getting in a little deeper. And so I would like to play something that I think would be very interesting.
Please.
And two things I like playing clothing. One would be gangsta grass.
Get prepared soon as we hit the playback. We are to ignite every one of them haystacks. If you ain't ready, fool, you should make tracks. Beat the beat rock, no time to fake jacks.
We are the ones with the one burning baby. You can see the flames travel as we run tonight.
As we ride.
We are the ones with the one burning baby. You can shake it till you break it. And my Lord,
show me what you got.
I know.
That's the best.
Well, I just love that because, bringing more people in.
Yeah.
Bringing more people in with different kinds of expressions and influencing the music, influencing each other, having that conversation. I just think that's really
And boy, do they work well together.
Oh my gosh, her voice. All of them work
all of
together.
them so well together.
It's just so great.
Great. Julie, is there something else you want to show us before we bring Doug?
Well, let's see. Do I have anything else on my? Well, one last thing I would like to say about bluegrass music that's really interesting. There's maybe two quick things. Is how religion, gospel is also a huge part of spirituality. We can use that word, and however you experience that is also a really big part of bluegrass. And sing gospel songs, and that's part of that. Also, that 3 and 4 part harmony that blows your head off when it's done right. So that's a wonderful thing. So I have 2 examples, and then we can close it out here. Maybe we should start a little bit with Who Will Sing for Me.
I often sing
for
those I
love,
who've gone to
live with Christ above.
No more on earth, therefore I'll see. When I am gone,
Who'll sing for me?
Who sang for me?
Who'll sing for me
when I am gone? As I so long for friends I've done. Well, it won't be long. Till the home I see.
when I am gone,
Who'll sing for me?
Sing for me.
Oh my God.
But-
Wow.
One last, because we want to be inclusive.
Wow.
Will you play Atheists Don't Have No Songs, please? This Steve Martin brought a lot to bluegrass, I have to say. Brought a lot of people in.
For atheists,
there's no good news.
they'll never sing a song of faith. In their songs,
They have a rule.
the he is always lowercase. The he is always lowercase.
Silliness.
Well,
Thank you.
And so bluegrass does include everyone. It's open for everyone.
One would hope.
Well, I love that. And if we can sort of think about what makes some musical traditions really open to all of these influences, to diversity of, both people and cultural content coming in, and, being a container that can grow with us and can, give us the opportunity to change in ways that help to feed our souls.
Yes, I love that.
Yeah.
And I hope you all have somebody who will sing for you.
Yes.
So thank you.
Thank you, Julie.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Julie, you stay.
Yeah, you can just move over. So you want to introduce your dad?
Yeah, and so now this is actually a great transition. So the next guest is my dad. Will
you sing for him when he does?
Sure.
All right. Doug Kenrick. All right. So Doug, we joke, of course, that you're Dave's dad, but it turns out you're actually quite a famous scientist in your own right, really one of the founders of evolutionary psychology, and you've done a huge amount of research on human nature. So
I reckon so.
And in the last few weeks, I think you've maybe taken an interest in bluegrass music as a like lens into looking at human nature. Is that right?
In the last few hours, yes. Actually, I listened to bluegrass growing up because I'm from that generation of, the Grateful Dead, and then Flatt and Scruggs used to be on television when I was a little kid. Yeah. So we got some bluegrass in my generation. But I was listening to it recently with Dave, trying to connect it to, we have this idea of are we able to have a PowerPoint on here? Or is that
we have the slide
image? Is it possible to get that up?
This is sorry, it's what you have to peek around it, Athena.
So we have this idea that
yes, there you go.
I'm on the pyramid.
You climb the pyramid of life.
The pyramid.
Yeah.
Okay.
So this is like a rebuilt version of Maslow's classic pyramid in terms of what we know now about evolutionary psychology. And the concept is that, throughout life, we have to go through a series of stages developmentally. First, we have to basically survive. We have to get our mom to feed us and keep us warm. Then we become concerned about protecting ourselves from strangers, from the bad guys. And none of these things ever go away as we get old, but they get at least added to. Then we become concerned with making friends. then we become concerned with getting respect and status. This was all stuff Maslow talked about developmentally. But then at the top, we kind of threw off Maslow's sacred self-actualization. Not that we believe there isn't such a thing, but from an evolutionary perspective, why do we do all this? We make friends, we get status so that we can find mates. And then we have to keep those mates, which some of us have realized is a slightly different problem than finding a mate. And then, from an evolutionary perspective, the design is so that we can, care for our kin. And so Dave and I have been talking about, well, we went and re-looked at some of the, pop hits of bluegrass and asked the question of which of these, it turns out the different styles of music represent different motives better. And to some extent, you folks have already been talking about this, because I went and looked at, I'm just going to take out my PowerPoints here, but the songs that stand out for me. So often it sounds like bluegrass, people are having a lot of fun, just give me some of that good old Mountain Dew, which is actually probably a song about affiliation and friendship. But a lot of the songs, Dave pointed this out to me, and I started to look at my collection of old bluegrass songs, and there's things like Rolling in My Sweet Baby's Arms. Sounds like a fun song, right? Rolling in my sweet baby's arms. But then you get to the lyrics and they're like, where were you last Friday night while I was lying in jail? Walking the streets with another man, wouldn't even go my bail. So a lot of these songs, Blue Moon.
Prostitution.
I don't know if it's prostitution, but it was just like this infidelity was a big theme.
Yeah.
And then Blue Moon of Kentucky, you talked before about Bill Monroe. That sounds like a cheery song, right? Blue Moon of Kentucky, keep on shining. We all think that's, a happy song. But then you listen to the, shine on the one who's gone and left me blue. Shine on
Dreary
the one
songs couched in happy melodies.
Right. There's all this, there's a lot of mate retention or failure to retain mates, which I think is a special problem of poor people. Poor people living in, Appalachia, because it's probably pretty hard under all that adversity to maintain relationships. In fact, poor people do split up more than wealthier people. So, even though these people do have a lot of Jesus in their life, it's not enough to keep relationships together under all that stress, And the other motive that I thought was a big one was basic survival. And you talked a bit about this.
Yeah, mining and
fevers.
Exactly. A lot of fevers documented.
Right. A lot of death and a lot of, like some of the songs that popped out for me. Well, it's dark as a dungeon way down in the mine.
We have video.
Do you have that?
Oh, yeah, let's play that one.
This is beautiful. This is Merle Travis.
Can you play it now? Or
yes, and it's gorgeous.
Sure.
Dark as a dungeon.
Merle Travis.
You know what? A coal miner's job is one of the toughest there is. It's like an old fella told me one time, once a miner, always a miner. If you work in the mines, the coal soot gets in your blood. That's according to me and according to this song. Come and listen, you fellows, so young and so fine, and seek not your fortune in the dark, dreary mine, where the demons of death often come by surprise. One fall of the slate and you're buried alive, where it's dark as a dungeon and damp as the dew, where the danger is doubled and pleasures are few, where the rain never falls and the sun never shines. It's dark as a dungeon way down in the mine.
Yeah,
Isn't it great?
Yes, that's
powerful.
Just, right. And it's about this miserable life. I mean, I lived in West Virginia for a while. You'd see people, their faces were black. Their faces were just dyed black, and they had black lung disease, So, and that's 9 Pound Hammer is another one of those songs. It's just about sort of the dreariness of working these miserable jobs. So there's a lot of basic survival. There's a lot of mate retention, or actually more like breaking up kinds of things.
Inability to retain. Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
Are they sort of like, warning songs to be like, if you don't want your relationship to break up, or are they just really mourning?
I actually think they're just kind of socially supporting one another. When you're miserable, you want to hear from other people, yeah, I'm suffering from this too. And you say, I actually think a lot of bluegrass music as practiced is probably about affiliation. It's like people harmonizing about the miseries of their life, and in giving one another social support at the same time, and also saying, hey, you know, it's miserable, but here we are singing. And you know, and I think what Dave was saying before, why do we listen to it? It actually kind of makes us feel good. It makes us feel good to realize I'm not the only one whose life sucks. You know.
No, that makes sense.
And if you're playing it with other people and you're singing the lyrics together, you also have shared attention on these struggles, which might help you to, you know, feel like you're not in it alone.
Yeah. No, I mean, that does for me. You know, when I hear other people are having the same problems in life that I'm having, it makes me just feel a little bit like, okay, at least I'm not, you know, I'm not solely picked out for, you know, my miseries are not as bad as people who are working down in the dungeon. But, you know, we all have misery in our life. And so, you know, I think that's big. And as I thought about the other themes, I talked to you about this yesterday. You don't see a lot of, when I was a kid, I listened to doo-wop music. That was the bluegrass of New York City in 1958, right? And they're all about love, you know, in the still of the night, you know, they're falling in love. And they're, you know, these songs were written by like 18 and 19-year-old kids flying, you know, on the subways, checking one another out. And they were very romantic. And I thought, how many of those poor people, you know, got in those long relationships and divorced later? But, you know, during those days, it was all optimism and love and that was very young people. And then if you look at like, if you listen to hip hop music, a lot of it is about the two themes that jump out for me there are like short-term relationships, you know, getting some booty, having some, you know, very explicit sexual lyrics.
Yes.
And then also a lot about status, you know, a lot about my money and the, you know, the one about, what's the one about the gold, the
grills?
Grills,
me see your
right,
grill.
grills, right. You know.
Is that still a thing?
I don't know that that's
I was going to get one.
I haven't heard that song in a
Doesn't
while.
go with bluegrass.
Not so well.
Right, yeah.
But they're also in hip hop. There are a lot of songs about sort of struggle, right? The struggle to survive.
Yes,
Yeah.
right.
And
right.
And so I think you're going to see that a lot in any music, especially music of people who are not coming from a place of a lot of wealth, you know. And so.
Is there any genre that has a lot about you? You brought up one of the songs about family. Some of the songs that I had on my list, they were, you know, like there's one called "Always Be Kind to Your Mother" and "Sweeter Than the Flowers."
Oh, I love "Sweeter Than the Flowers." I have something for you.
Do you?
Yes.
Okay.
A robin built a nest on Daddy's grave.
All right. So this is the thing. These songs are they're sort of about family, but they're really, again, sadly, they're about parents
Loss.
dying.
Parents
you know?
dying.
Yeah.
Can you cue that
There you
one
go.
up?
Springtime is a coming in the mountain, by a river on the hill where Daddy lay. All the songbirds were singing, and a robin built a nest on Daddy's grave.
It's beautiful.
That's beautiful.
It's a beautiful remembrance. Although I didn't know robins built nests on the ground. Just a detail.
Or maybe the grave, they put it in a tree.
Yeah, lift
It's
it.
not,
So,
right.
yeah.
They don't get biology classes in Appalachia. This is the problem. They do have robins. So.
Yes.
Doug, do you have other thoughts about sort of the connection between bluegrass music and these fundamental human motives, human nature?
You know, I don't really, if I think about the one, I don't see a lot of status concerns. Do you?
Is
in bluegrass
there a
music?
specific type of status, though? Like the person who is the best at playing the banjo or the best singer, right? Are they demonstrating?
They might be getting status from, yes, but the songs aren't like the way that hip hop music often explicitly talks about getting ahead, getting rich, you know. I don't see that in bluegrass
I
music.
don't either. There's a lot of maybe lamentation of, you know, and discussion or you know, thinking about poverty and
right.
being tied to poverty, the implications of.
So it's almost like there isn't room to be concerned about having high status because really just dealing
all
with the
about-
consequences of not really having access to
Day-to-day life.
But it's not, but I don't think it's bad. It's not, I think it's viewed, I mean, some of it is, oh, we're lamenting this hardship. But then there's also this celebration of, you know, just living on the land, having a simpler life, not needing to have status, not needing to have all these things. And I think there's something really appealing about that.
There also is this idea of autonomy as status, right? Of like living away from the law, right? Like the law is sort of crushing your ability to sort of direct your own life.
Well, there's certainly songs about getting on trains, you know, but mostly it's to get away from some broken-hearted, you know, situation you're in.
Yeah, trains are
or
really
you're broke,
or just about
or
like,
you had lost in poker or something.
they're metaphorical too all the time for going
they?
down another track, going to a
Right.
different place.
well, like the Wabash Cannonball. But actually, the Wabash Cannonball, listen to the lyrics, and it's really not. I thought, well, here's a cheery, and it is a kind of cheery song, but it's just about the train. It's not about life. It's not about. It's just about the train. Isn't the train beautiful? You know, and maybe the train was beautiful because it represented
Getting
the hell
away,
out of it.
escaping, yeah,
Right.
another place. I mean,
Yeah.
trains, that's how you got away then. We didn't have any planes to
Right.
go away.
Right. Well, and especially in Appalachia.
Right. You couldn't leave on a jet plane.
Right.
Well, shall we bring on our next guest who is going to talk about how she can use her ovaries to tell good music from bad?
Yeah, she's going to be joining us
You guys can
remotely, so you
stay
guys
if
can
you'd
stay
like.
with us here.
So,
Yeah.
So
gonna have
this
room?
is Summer Mengelkoch.
I think she's.
She's coming from a distance. Okay.
Summer, welcome to
Oh, I
Undead
see.
Live.
Okay.
Hi, thank you so much for having me.
So Summer is an evolutionary psychologist who works on health and reproduction, and including how we use our reproductive organs to actually detect musical errors. So Summer, welcome. We're so excited to hear from you.
Thank you. So I'm excited to be here. So as mentioned today, I'm going to be talking about some recent research investigating how women's acuity to notice kind of errors in musical quality are related to her levels of estradiol. And so in general, we've heard a lot today about kind of like the signaling ability of music and how it might be used for like affiliation and things like that. So I'm going to talk about today musical displays as a courtship cue. So musical displays are used as a courtship cue throughout the animal kingdom. It's thought that musical ability is kind of like an honest signal of intelligence and genetic quality, because the ability to produce high quality music is going to require rhythmic coordination, pitch control, creativity, skill, a lot of time invested in practice. And beyond these things, being able to perform music as a part of a group also requires cooperation and a type of kind of coordination in time and space that isn't very easy to do. So in general, it tends to fall on the males of most species to be doing the seducing of mates. And so in general, the males tend to be the predominant sex using musical displays in their efforts to attract and secure mates throughout animals. So animals like frogs, birds, mice all use musical displays when they're trying to attract potential mates. And those with the highest quality musical displays are often the ones who are the most reproductively successful. And it turns out that human women also appreciate musical displays. We probably all know some woman who has dated, a guy with a host of undesirable qualities that are pretty much fully redeemed by their musical abilities. Or you can enter media, right? There's lots of examples of these like aging, out of shape rock stars. Some of them are jerks, but they're still pulling in models, well into their later years. And there's even some empirical research to back this up, right? So one study found that women are more likely to respond positively to a Facebook request from a man if he's holding a guitar in his profile photo, compared to like if he's not having any cues of musical ability in that profile photo. So in general, women seem to find musical ability attractive in their mates. And it's likely that they're using this musical ability as kind of a cue that the musicians possess these desirable, kind of difficult to observe qualities, right? So cool. So women find men who produce these high quality musical displays to be attractive. But I was kind of wondering if there might be certain times when women find men who produce high quality musical displays to be especially attractive. And so past research has found women to shift their short-term mating preferences around ovulation, which is the few days in a month when conception is possible for a woman. And women at this time tend to prefer men who are a little more attractive or who have cues of high genetic quality. So a lot of researchers have talked about like why these mate preferences might shift or if they shift, but I was a lot more interested in how they would shift. So how are women able to prefer these more attractive men when they're ovulating? And I predicted that maybe women have increased perceptual acuity to notice these really subtle differences in mating-related cues during the ovulatory window that would facilitate this kind of shift in preferences. And kind of based on that, I wondered if perhaps it might be driven by higher levels of estradiol or estrogen that occur at ovulation. So to look into this, I wanted to see if women were more attuned to musical quality at a high compared to low fertility point in their ovulatory cycles, and if this attunement was driven by their levels of estradiol. So I collected data from about 400 women, but unfortunately, most of them did not come in for their second session. So today I'm going to tell you about some results I have from about 140 of these women. Half these women were naturally cycling, and the other half were taking a birth control pill. And all these women completed a session at both a high and low fertility point in their cycles. So the high fertility session happened in the peri-ovulatory phase of their cycles, or right around ovulation. And the low fertility session happened during the luteal phase of their cycles when conception risk is pretty low. And so all these women completed a music task, and then they had salivary estradiol values that were in range for our assay at both their sessions. To confirm ovulation, we use luteinizing hormone or LH tests in the naturally cycling women. And then we presented them with a task. So we presented women with 4 versions of the same song at both of their sessions. And we told them that these songs had been recorded by a local band local bands for a radio contest. And so all the songs had no lyrics in them. And then 3 of the songs had intentionally placed errors in either tempo or pitch of either the main guitar line or the bass line. And so we presented all the songs to the women in a random order at each session. And then we just asked them to tell us how many errors they heard in each song. So I'm going to have them play a clip for y'all of the best version of the song and then the worst version of the songs that we presented to the women, so you can get an idea of what they were listening to.
Summer, are you playing it there for us?
No, I sent it over there, so I was hoping y'all could play it.
Ooh, we have we have a technical issue. I think the zombies might have captured that in midstream. So maybe you can just move on. Tell us the results of the study.
Absolutely. Yeah. So basically, the main gist of it was just that one of them sounded pretty casually nice, some guitar, some bass, and the other one sounded pretty incorrect. So you could hear some pretty obvious errors in the kind of worst version of the clip. And I'd love to just be able to say that my data came out exactly the way I expected to. All my predictions were confirmed, nothing messy, but this is almost never how research goes. So what actually happened was that I kind of started out with this idea that the women in my study were going to have these really high levels of estradiol right around ovulation, because that's what you typically see. Typically, women have this very high spike in estradiol at ovulation. And while that definitely occurs, the way that I timed my sessions wasn't exactly perfect to pick it up. So this, I used luteinizing hormone tests to confirm ovulation, and then I scheduled women's sessions to occur right after they had a luteinizing hormone surge. However, that luteinizing hormone surge is actually cued by this really big spike in estradiol that happens right around and right before ovulation. And it turns out that women's levels of estradiol are actually kind of dropping by the time that luteinizing hormone surge is at its peak. So by timing my sessions that way, given that I was interested in how estradiol was going to kind of facilitate these effects, I ended up catching women when their estradiol levels were probably on the decline. And so the women in my sample had just about high levels on an average kind of way of estradiol in their high and low fertility sessions. And so my session timings weren't ideal. Part of it's because I was looking at salivary estradiol instead of total estradiol, and part of it's because of that timing of the sessions. But I did decide to continue on with some kind of, exploratory
Summer,
data analysis.
Summer, we have your clips here, so we're going to play your clips,
Cool.
and then we're going to invite Mike McBeath on after that. So Liz, would you play clips? And then the second clip.
So yeah, you heard the second one was probably a little worse than the first one.
Thanks, Summer. Could you sum up for us the final results?
Yeah, absolutely. So what I ended up finding was that instead of analyzing my data the way I planned, I looked at within women changes in estradiol levels, predicting within women changes in how many errors they heard in the songs. And I found that in the session that women had higher levels of estradiol, they also heard more errors in the song. And in those sessions, they had the lower levels of estradiol, they heard less errors in the same songs. And so in general, I think this is kind of cool because it indicates that potentially women might be more attuned to mating related stimuli when they are ovulating, or at least when they have high levels of estradiol. And right now, I think it might be really interesting to think about how this might be able to use this information to detect healthy individuals from those who have been zombified. Given that there'd be like some pretty big cognitive and physical decline in people who have been infected with a potential zombie virus, it's unlikely that zombified individuals would be able to produce really high quality musical displays. So based on this research, I think we might be able to use women who are ovulating, or at least who have really high levels of estradiol, to be able to detect early zombification in people who might have been infected.
Wow. Thanks, Summer. I really enjoy the public health implications that you're bringing to the table to sum up your results. Thank you so much for joining us on Undead Live.
Thank you.
And it has been amazing having you here with us, Julie. Doug will invite you to stay with us as Mike comes on. So our next guest is Mike McBeath. Mike is a psychology professor, a musician, and he works on many, many things, including making learning fun for everyone. So, Mike, thank you so much for being. You brought some things for us. Do you have a little show and tell?
I can. Well, first of all, I have to correct. It's pronounced Macbeth.
It's pronounced Macbeth. I'm sorry. You were
right.
right. You know what? I am the worst at names. You guys just.
That's all right. They'll remember it better now.
So it's Macbeth.
That's how I can tell. If someone calls and asks for Miss McBeath, they go, "It's some lousy salesperson." I can rudely hang up.
That's me. I'm just some lousy salesperson.
Well, the thing is, you convinced both of us who knew. Like
you guys knew.
Like, no, it's McBeath.
I knew it was I told her it was Macbeth. That's all right.
So,
maybe you should
I'm
change
so
it to
sorry.
McBeath. Dave and I have to be Kendrick.
Yeah.
and,
well, and
Summer Mengelkoch.
And I'm Octopus or Atkins or yeah. So Mike, you're here to not just talk to us about harmonicas, but to actually play harmonica.
Yeah, I instead of just showing videos, I can do real life demos on this.
Amazing.
I could show the audience
let's
what
see.
I got here too. You can kind of see this. It's like, what is this thing? It's a case full of all these different harmonicas and different keys. My goodness. That way I'm ready for anything on that day.
Yeah. Well, so the harmonica is a really interesting instrument because it is in a particular key, right? It's not like a, guitar where you can really, play in any key.
I'm doing a workshop later on this afternoon. And part of that is it's a really good instrument if you don't know how to do music that well, because I'm in the right key, so at least my notes aren't too far off, and also it's structured so it's like 1, 3, 5 chords. So if you blow the wrong note, it's as long as you keep the rhythm going, it's like, oh, you're just trying to jazz it up there. But I did want to talk a little about the history of the harmonica. It's sort of the back history of bluegrass, I think. But it's and I guess I'll play something first.
Yeah, please.
This is a tune I'm sure a lot of you recognize, and they play it at bluegrass things too. But it's actually the lyrics are from 1779. See if you recognize this song. It's called Amazing Grace. It was written by John Newton. He was a slave trader back in, when it was legal or whatever. And this is what ties in with the history here, that he had a consciousness change. Like, this is wrong, I shouldn't do this. And actually the music to that wasn't added till like 1830 or something like that. But
when was the song originally written?
The lyrics. So music was the lyrics were 1779.
Okay, so
music was a little different back then. Lots of times people would just put lyrics with words, and this is part of my interest in the harmonica history. It has to do with the change in America. It's like around late 1700s, 1800s. There's no music much going on. This is this backwater place. They played Yankee Doodle on the penny whistle and stuff like that. And by the time you get to 1900, we're like the fountain of music. There's all these, country and jazz and blues and bluegrass and marching music, all these things coming up. The harmonica, nobody talks about it because it wasn't considered an instrument back then. In fact, I was at some kind of festival where there's a bunch of banjo players I was talking to, and they were making fun of the harmonica players.
Well, that's because everybody makes fun of the banjo players,
Well,
so they have to have somebody to make fun of.
That's what I said. I feel like if the banjo players are making fun of us, we got to be the lowest of the low. But people didn't really record what happened with the harmonica because it wasn't considered an instrument. And I'm developing this thesis. I call it the blues for fractal. That I think it's sort of where blues started. I have an odd hypothesis about it, but it turns out it does have to do maybe with actual real life zombies in a way, not just metaphorical zombies.
We love real zombies.
The real zombie story. I mean, those are it's an African religion of voodoo, and they had them in like Haiti and these places where they actually drugged people as sort of a punishment and then buried them alive and then dug them up, and people thought they were really dead. And the zombie, I don't know what they called it, it was a religious guy, would sort of keep them in prison and drugged for years. And then there's one case I read about not that long ago where the guy died that was in charge, and they're all kind of drifting in town, and they're all unhealthy, and their teeth have fell out and stuff. So that's the real zombies are true in a way.
Yeah.
But the way it ties in is that the harmonicas were originally made in Europe, but in the United States, they were one of the few instruments that like slaves could get a hold of, because they wouldn't allow them to have regular instruments. And they're almost always in the key of C. This is a key. I'll play another key of C harp here. That's what you guys got copies of here. And it turns out most bluegrass and country music is in the key of G. A lot of it's C, and some of it's in D. But G is the primary. That's the fiddle, I guess, key of choice. And so all these guys had these like C harmonicas, and it's like, well, it's only one flat off. Maybe I could fake it. And it turns out if you do that, there's a scale you can play that's low on the harmonica. It's, I guess I could explain. The harmonica has a regular. Actually, I could go back one other point.
Yeah. Sure.
The good harmonicas. I put like a really good one here, way back when.
Whoa. Oh, cool.
This is a remake of like 100-year-old harmonica.
Wow.
You probably can't tell on there, but there's actually 2 rows of holes here.
Wow.
Oh, sure.
And that's because they didn't want the the blow hole and the draw hole to mess with each other.
Oh,
and so
can you hear
they
it?
stay in tune if you do that. You know, you got a little marching band there. And so the notes are all in tune with each other. The cheap, they say we can make cheaper ones that just have one hole.
Right.
And the trouble with that, or it turns out the good thing for like the poor people that had them, is the two reeds, the blow and the draw reeds. They're like two pendulums that are hanging on the same. This is a little physics for you guys out there.
Mhm.
Like if you have two pendulums, they tend to like pull each other towards each other, and so you can
entrainment.
do entrainment,
Coupled oscillators.
entrainment. Yeah, this is part of your expertise area. It turns out that because of that, you can by sort of changing the timbre of your tongue, kind of going ooh ah, you can make them both vibrate, and that's called bending a note. Which is what people feel like, that's what sounds cool. You can't do that when they have two holes like that. You can't really do it on those chromatic harmonicas with the buttons on them. It's just these cheap shit little ones. You can, but I think that the slaves and then the early antebellum blacks figured out, well, I can play. I'm playing key of G with a C harp then. So,
Oh yeah.
There's another thing that's sort of funny about that if you know the theory of music, that chords that sound good together are ones that they have harmonic frequencies. So an octave is a doubling of a frequency, a fifth is 3/2. They're the exact ratios. It has to do with if you're vibrating a string, it likes to vibrate at all of the nodes that could fit in there. So we evolved to hear those as sounding like they go together and they sound good. I can lose my train of thought on this. The scale. So the scales that we have, it turns out there's some weird mathematics that we have most of the simple ratios in the scale, but there's one note we're missing, and you can't have them all in there. They get messed up with each other. But then we're missing, I call it's sort of a flattened seventh, but you get that by bending the seventh note here in the lower scale. So there's this kind of cool note that the harmonica has that nobody else seems to
Can we hear
play.
it?
Well, you can recognize it when you hear blues songs. I'm going to play, this is sort of the classic song, I think, that sort of started country and a lot of the bluegrass, I think. It's called Tea for Texas. So Jimmy Rogers did this in like the late 20s. And he was, I should say, all these white guys are really copying black guys that did it, that didn't get credit before. But this... Part of the reason the harmonica is popular is because you can play more than one note. And if you're good and you learn how to do this, there's a method called the tonguing method of the harmonica, where you can actually lift your tongue up and down, and you can try to do two things at once that way. So it's kind of like ragtime music would be like that. Let's see, which song should I play? How about... That reminded me of another thing is like we were talking before about trains being popular back then, and the harmonica is a great instrument for doing trains, and it turns out that pulls you towards the cross harp too, because it's the train whistle.
And Mike is going to be teaching everyone how to play that song at the harmonica workshop that he's leading.
It's the beginner song.
I don't know how much time I have, but
do you want to close us out with anything?
Well, I just wanted to mention minor key.
Yeah.
And you can tune minor key on a regular harp. Like you have a C harp, you play in the key of A. But they make minor key harmonicas now. So you can, like here's a regular scale. But then, and you know, back in, I think around 1960, someone did a study showing all of the top 20 pop tunes were in major keys like that. And now it's sort of half and half, but the minor key. Great. Let's see, I was going to do. Amazing. Mike, thank you so much. So everybody who is here with us live, we will be having a workshop with Mike later this afternoon where he will teach us all how to play the harmonica. So you should have the harmonica in your swag bag and you can join us for that, Mike. All right.
Thank you
This was
so much.
fantastic.
Yeah, yeah. Great. And you guys can stay with us here. We now have Cam Carlson joining us, our correspondent from the field. Cam, are you there? Oh, good.
No. Yeah, I'm here. I can hear you guys.
Great to have you here with us. Hey, tell us what is the situation look like out there in terms of the zombie apocalypse, or have you noticed anything kind of going on here that you could give us feedback on in terms of how to handle the zombie situation?
Well, to be perfectly honest with you, I mean, I think you got the first thing down is that keep the morale up with the music going on. I really don't know how to follow any of that, so good job, guys. Keep it up. You know, out here in the field, it's kind of, you know, we're running and gunning. Sitting out here by myself, just kind of sitting on a back porch I found, you know, in this house that's been abandoned. So here I am, but yeah, it's nice to hear music for once in a while. So, but everything out there is dire, but yeah, good to hear it.
Well, and so Cam, you're a leader at the Zombie Research Society, and you're also an epidemiologist with expertise in disaster response and outdoor survival. Do you have any tips for us about how maybe we can integrate these instruments into our survival plans?
Well, it's funny you mentioned that. A lot of what goes on when it comes to survival, especially when you're with yourself or even in a group, one of the biggest keys to survival is that you need to keep your morale up. You need to keep fighting for something, and you need to keep hope alive. And when it comes to musical instruments, you know, societies have been doing that for thousands of years, creating music to, you know, lighten moods, to celebrate different milestones, to celebrate unions and things like that. And especially when it comes down to if you're by yourself or if you're with a group, and you need to keep your spirits up. Music plays a huge role in that. How do you keep your hope alive in what would be considered the hopeless? Not to mention, musical instruments can be used to signal other people. You can always have a key to signal people, and that way, if in World War II, for instance, they use thunder and flash, well, you can do the same thing with music. You can play one note, the other person can play another note. It really just comes down to how you want to survive, and can you make the best of a really bad situation?
Cam, thank you. We really appreciate your input and your feedback about how we can incorporate music into our survival plan. And in terms of our survival plan here, we have a resident rap musician. We have Baba Brinkman, our very own Baba Brinkman. Here, Baba, you want to join us? Oh, Baba! You're across the aisle here today. Yep. So, did you prepare something for us to get the zombie hordes to be at bay, or are we bringing them? Are we inviting them?
So this is a brand new rap. It was written in the last hour and a half, and incorporates also the Eat, Pray, Run and Dr. Zed sessions from earlier today. So I figured there was a lot of sort of health and healing and entrainment and togetherness and music themes in the talks today. So I did the Cult of Caring anthem.
All right.
Team Cult of Caring, make some noise!
Cult of Chaos is better.
I think this track's in the key of G if you feel like jamming on.
Ooh.
All right, here we go. Yeah, we're gonna vibe Cult of Caring style. Yeah, it's the Cult of Caring, togetherness, coalitions and sharing, hugging and music and oxytocin and soul bearing. The Cult of Caring, the cult of nothing is too embarrassing, cause loving is not the weak option, nah, loving is daring. It's the Cult of Caring, of neuropeptides inside flaring, flooding our brains as we're sharing a gaze. Don't call it scaring. The Cult of Caring, of emotional airing and repairing. Embrace the love and set down all the burdens you carry. The Cult of Caring, can you feel that loving embrace? Can you hear the sweet music like Julie Sullivan Brace? They have this amphitheater just right for the fit. It's called the Pepsi Amphitheater. Julie said, baby, we're lit. But hey, we need more blues and melody and rhythm in our lives, which Julie is on a mission to devise. So listen and thrive. I'm just a resident rapper of Zab. I'm here kicking the rhymes, but I love acoustic music too. I love picking in the pines. Up in Flagstaff, the bluegrass death themes are emerging almost as much as in rap, like murder, 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 murder. I want some hybrid hip-hop, some death. Won't you spell me over for another year? Hybrid hip-hop. And as soon as I said that, the zombies attacked, so I guess not. I need some tactics for staying alive, and off of my head, I thought I could get them from Joe Alcock. I'm talking Dr. Zed, get the vaccines if you want to live. That's what he said. Like Dave, who had to get 8 rabies shots as a kid. After he was dog bit, he needed a couple of medical experts of the caliber of Dr. Zed and his guest Jessica Brinkworth, who's down with the Cult of Caring. We're building up a community of maternal bonding along with transgenerational immunity, immortality. You gotta get a lot of your mama's cells up in there living. The immunoglobulin A transmission from breast milk, that's called chimerism. So when you talk to your mama, you can tell her thanks for that. It brings generations together, like gangster brass. That's the style I like. Yeah, straight up rocking and teaching nutritional concepts with pop culture and Greg Popovich and Erica O'Neill. Yeah, the zombies are totally real, and we can embrace them and find ways to know how they feel. The zombies are just hungry, delicious brains they're desperate to feed. All they want is our lipids on top of our omega-3. I listen to Greg and believe the zombies are gnashing their teeth. They're just looking for a fruit that's really anti-inflammatory. So forget about the trouble and the toil. We can mix up and boil a zombie broth made from cat brains and fish oil. Delicious. Oh, don't be shy. Come on, zombies. Taste it. Let's draw the zombies to our breasts. We can feed them and embrace them in the cult of caring. With the coalitions and sharing. With the hugging and music and oxytocin and soul bearing. It's the cult of caring. The cult of nothing is too embarrassing. Loving is not the weak option. Yeah, I know. Loving is daring. It's the cult of caring. Of neuropeptides flaring. Flooding our brains as we're sharing a gaze. Don't call it staring. It's the cult of caring. Of emotions and repairing. Embracing the love and setting down every one of the burdens you carry. So set them down like bluegrass songs. Cause life is hectic. It's time to analyze the lyrics of songs. With Douglas Kenrick, every genre of music from lightness to darkness to bleak has a place on the newly restructured hierarchy of needs. From safety to affiliation to friendship, releasing the tension to heartbreak in the face of failures of mate retention. And yes, when it comes to music, women are kind of choosy. That's why Doug said that rap music is all about getting that booty, and why ovulation changes women's perceptions of tones, predicted and confirmed in a study by Summer Mengelkoch. When I'm rapping and singing for women with high hopes, I better watch out for when they're hearing me hitting those bad notes like, oh! Thank goodness the ones on the pill can't even tell. Contraceptively zombified, blind to my lack of skill. And that's how I peacock with raggedy feathers like a beast. Harmonica theory lessons in history with Mike McBeath. Never off key, harmonica's locked on the melody. It's the cult of caring, it brings us together. Rejection of entropy, harmonica is a real instrument, and Mike knows how to blow. Unlike banjo players who he called the lowest of the low. Come on, Mike, we can all get together, be who you be. Even a C harmonica could play along with this track in the key of G. I'll freestyle with any instrument, so come on and play with me. That's called entrainment, and hey, that's Athena's favorite theme. Even the cult of chaos can get entrained. Yeah, y'all are gonna see the fall into lockstep with the cult of caring clique. And every musician in the place can jam in the vast sea of Zen and harmonize together harmonically. Cause it's the cult of caring, of coalitions and sharing, hugging and music and oxytocin and soul bearing. It's the cult of caring, the cult of nothing is too embarrassing. Loving is not the weak option, not loving is daring. It's the cult of caring, of neuropeptides flaring, flooding our brains as we share a gaze. Don't call it staring, it's the cult of caring, of emotions and repairing, airing it out. So embrace the love and set down the burdens you carry with the cult of caring.
Amazing. Baba, thank you so much. And Baba will be doing a workshop tomorrow on how to rap your science. So you can all learn the mad beats that Baba brings. And today we'll have the workshop with Mike. And in just a few minutes, we will have Mizilikazi Kone with a show of zombie history right here at 3:15. So stay tuned for that. And thank you all so much for joining us for this edition of Undead Live on Channel Z. Remember, the best way to protect your brains in the apocalypse is to share them. See you next time.
To join the cult of chaos.
See you next time on Undead Live.